That old cabin has got to go, Karen Aldridge declared at the Cedar Crest HOA meeting. 6 months later, she was the one who had to go, along with her gazebo, her driveway extension, and her HOA presidency. I stared at the 48-hour demolition notice, heat rising in my neck. The Cedar Crest HOA demanded I tear down my grandfather's 1952 workshop or face $100 daily fines and a lien on my property. Cute. These paper tyrants had been building improvements on my family's land for years, without permission, and now they wanted to play sheriff. My name's Evan Carter. And half a year earlier, I'd inherited 2 acres in Cedar Crest, a small house, a cedar-scented workshop cabin, and a pond where Grandpa Walt taught me to fish. He came home from World War II with calloused hands and built that cabin log by log. It still smelled like cedar and motor oil, the perfume of honest work. Back when Cedar Crest was farmland, neighbors waved at each other and kids knew everyone's dogs. Today, the hills are ringed with stone brick estates and Maple Vale, beige palaces stamped from the same mold. 15 years ago, they formed the Cedar Crest HOA to preserve property values. Translation: control anything that isn't beige. Enter Karen Aldridge, 52, real estate powerhouse and HOA president. White BMW, salon blonde, a husband, Mark Aldridge, who nods like it's a job. She marched onto my land for a routine inspection, snapped photos, and zeroed in on Grandpa's cabin. This temporary structure violates our community guidelines, she announced, without stepping inside. It's 70 years old, I said. Built by Grandpa Walt. She smiled the way agents are trained to smile. Well, that was a different time. We have standards now. She handed me a 30-day compliance notice and clicked off, heels crunching my gravel like punctuation. 2 weeks later, she found an emergency safety issue and dragged out a county inspector, the kind whose boots have never seen mud. 10 minutes of poking, a few theatrical frowns, and boom, condemned. I hired my own expert, Colin Shaw, a structural engineer with hands like lumber and a reputation for telling the truth. His report shredded theirs. The cabin exceeded code. Grandpa Walt had overbuilt everything. Deep footings, forged brackets, tight joinery. I also called the county Heritage Society, which fast-tracked historic designation. While digging through records, I found Grandpa Walt's original 1952 permits, his careful handwriting, his plan to build a workshop for peaceful pursuits. My pride sharpened into resolve. Blocked on safety, Karen Aldridge moved the goalposts. Suddenly, it was architectural harmony. She unveiled a design committee, herself and 2 friends, that had, somehow, retro-approved every property except mine. Meanwhile, original families started quietly backing me. Mrs. Ellison, a retired teacher, combed old minutes. Luis Ramirez, who owns the hardware store, shared years of selective enforcement stories. Karen doubled down. She slashed my deadline to 7 days and threatened daily fines plus a lien on the neighborhood Facebook page. She warned of plummeting equity. Carefully cropped photos made my cabin look like a haunted shed. I filed a formal grievance. She'd skipped required notices, cure periods, mediation, and appeals, and I tipped Ben Park, a local editor, to the story of an HOA president targeting a veteran's family legacy. Then her nuclear option arrived by certified mail. 48 hours to demolish. Served by a deputy while Karen Aldridge grinned behind him. That night, broke and furious, I sat in the cabin with Grandpa Walt's leather journal and found a line I needed. You don't always outfight bullies. Sometimes you outfox them. While cleaning for photos, a loose board gave way to a metal box. Inside, the 1952 survey. My pulse kicked. The subdivision's current boundaries didn't match Grandpa Walt's deed research. According to his records, my property ran 53 feet beyond the assumed line, straight through Karen Aldridge's driveway, landscaping, and a slice of her yard. I spent my last $800 on Janet Doyle, a veteran surveyor with GPS gear. Her map confirmed it, 53 extra feet. Even better, the HOA's common area, where Karen Aldridge had installed a $12,000 gazebo, sat squarely on my land. A 1970s baseline error had cascaded through every later deed. The quiet part: Karen's brokerage had handled many of those sales. Overnight, the power flipped. The HOA had no authority over land not within its platted boundary. I could demand removal of every encroachment, or charge fair market rent for 15 years of trespass at $1,200 a month. Back rent alone topped $200,000. My phone buzzed nonstop. Mark Aldridge showed up ashen. "There has to be a mistake," he said. "Karen talked to lawyers all day. We could lose everything." I remembered Grandpa Walt's line about outfoxing. This wasn't about destroying the neighborhood or Mark. It was about justice and making sure Karen never abused anyone again. I built a small team. Luis Ramirez brought deep neighborhood intel and a long memory for double standards. Mrs. Ellison organized a decade of minutes into color-coded binders that would make a DA whistle. Rachel Kim, a property rights attorney, took my case on a payment plan and filed a quiet title action to lock the boundary dispute in court. And Frank Morrison, Grandpa's 86-year-old Army buddy, gave me 3 rules. Control the battlefield, choose the timing, and don't let emotion run the plan. We ran 4 phases. Phase 1, quiet title. Phase 2, calculate trespass rent and use it as leverage. Phase 3, force HOA reforms, term limits, conflicts of interest bans, transparent enforcement, mediation before fines. Phase 4, a public reveal so Karen couldn't reinvent herself in the next HOA. While Karen Aldridge hired a PI, who discovered I sometimes buy scratchers, tried to bribe inspectors, and staged emergency meetings without proper notice to jack my fines to $500 per day. We documented everything: threats, posts, drive-bys. When she cornered me at a grocery aisle and whispered a $10,000 cash resolution, my phone recorded the whole one-party consent conversation. Admissions about leaning on inspectors, peeking into my records, and more. The night before our court date, Karen called an emergency HOA meeting at the Cedar Crest Community Center, inviting media to witness her decisive action. Perfect stage. She clicked through a 20-slide deck about community standards, then moved to authorize immediate legal action and $500 per day fines. I asked for 5 minutes. "Thank you, Karen," I said, plugging in my laptop. "Let me start by showing everyone the actual boundary of my property." Janet Doyle's survey filled the wall, GPS points, iron pins, the whole line. A red overlay showed Karen Aldridge's gazebo, driveway extension, and half her backyard planted on my land. The HOA common area, too. The room went dead still. I flipped to photos of survey stakes and timestamps, then to rental calculations. $180,000 in back rent, plus removal costs. Also, I said, we've documented selective enforcement against original families, single parents, and seniors, and we have audio of attempts to influence county officials. Mrs. Ellison stood. I moved to remove Karen Aldridge as HOA president, effective immediately. Seconded, Luis Ramirez said. The voice vote wasn't close. Even Karen's friends stared at their shoes. She erupted, conspiracies, fake surveys, bribed officials, until Deputy Harris stepped forward and, gently but firmly, asked her to leave. With the room quiet, I made my offer. I would deed the genuinely shared portion of land to the HOA and waive retroactive rent, on 3 conditions. Karen Aldridge's resignation, a complete bylaw overhaul, term limits, transparency, real appeals, mediation first, and a lease on the remaining encroached strip at triple market rent for 1 year. Dropping to fair market after reforms were enacted. The Cedar Crest HOA would quite literally pay for the privilege of learning to do things right. They voted yes on the spot. A week later, Karen Aldridge emailed her resignation, no apology, just acid. Mark Aldridge filed for divorce and moved to a small place across town. He's since been seen helping neighbors fix porch steps and actually smiling. The court granted my quiet title. The boundary is now indisputable. Cedar Crest HOA signed a lease for the encroached strip at triple rent, then reduced to fair market once the new bylaws passed. Tripled overnight. Felt right. The gazebo came down, and, together, we built something better. The Cedar Crest Community Garden. Kids plant carrots where a PowerPoint used to stand. Grandpa Walt's cabin became the tool library at Carter Cabin, where anyone can borrow a pressure washer, post hole digger, or tile saw and return it with a thank you note. Monthly potlucks replaced. Gotcha meetings. Enforcement now starts with a conversation, not a fine. The County Heritage Society plaque hangs by the cabin door, and it belongs there. As for Karen Aldridge, she sold and moved to Arizona for online consulting. The state suspended her real estate license for ethics violations. A local paper series, Thanks, Ben Park, on HOA reform sparked copycat changes in 3 nearby neighborhoods. Rachel Kim's phone won't stop ringing from people who finally believe they can fight back and win. 6 months after the vote, my niece brought her class to the cabin. They ran their hands along the logs Grandpa Walt fit by lantern light. I found one last note tucked in his journal. The best revenge is building something better than what they tried to tear down. Out by the garden, neighbors traded seedlings and stories. The air smelled like tomatoes, sawdust, and second chances. My cabin still stands. The bullies don't. And the rent? Tripled when it mattered. Then turned into soil, tools, and trust. That's a finish I can live with.